just in time for St. Patrick's Day, we have this really easy, minimal ingredient Irish cream mousse cake. Now, St. Patrick's Day is pretty well known to be such a boozy holiday, and typically you're going to see all the cakes in green and decorated for St. Patrick's Day, but while this Irish cream mousse cake is perfect for St. Patrick's Day, it's really great all year round. So we first have to make some Irish cream. Now, Bailey's is probably a brand that you may be familiar with. Bailey's actually does make a vegan Irish cream made with almond milk instead of the traditional cream that is in an Irish cream alcohol. So I'm making my own with some Irish whiskey, some coffee, and of course the almond milk. Now, this is also sweetened with sugar, so it's real simple to just throw all of those ingredients together, and there you have yourself some homemade Irish cream to use for your recipes, or just add some to your coffee. Now, I know right away some people are going to be asking me, well, I don't use alcohol in my cooking or baking, so what can I substitute? Honestly, this is such a minimal ingredient recipe where we just have some melted vegan chocolate. I've got my cashews already soaking, and then all we're adding to this recipe is the Irish cream and then folding in some whipped cream. So it's like, well, what are you going to substitute if you're not adding in one of the main ingredients? So, but as always, on my website at gretchensveganbakery.com, I will offer you some substitutions or just an alternative recipe so that you too can make this amazing mousse cake. Now, like I said, I do have my cashews soaking. I just brought them up to a quick boil and then let them soak for like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. You could let them soak overnight if you prefer to do it that way, but sometimes I don't think ahead, and a quick boil and then let them soak for about 30 minutes is totally fine. So what I am going to do with my homemade Irish cream is get 3/4 cup of it just to a small sauce pot, because I do want to warm it up. This is the main ingredient that gets folded into the melted chocolate, and if I do that cold, it's going to have a tendency to want to seize up my chocolate before I have a chance to fold in the whipped cream. So I do want to get this to the stove to kind of warm it up. And then we're going to whiz it up with these cashews, and that's how simple it is to make this Irish cream mousse. So that is my warmed up Irish cream. I'm just putting it into a magic bullet. If you had a blender or a food processor, that would be fine. The high-speed action of one of these things, though, is what's going to really smooth out that cashew so that you don't have like a chunky nut base. Actually, before I get to mixing the mousse, I should talk about the crust that I used. It's a brownie base that I'm using. So I went ahead and baked my best recipe for brownie. I only really needed half of it, so I did have some batter left over, and I made some little brownie cupcakes with the extra. There was more than what you see here, but I already ate a few of them. So I was planning on making some like Irish cream topped brownies, but I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I always talk about how I have extra cake scraps and my freezer is full of cake scraps, and somebody made a good comment on the last video saying I should show what I actually do with the excess cake scraps. So I'm thinking I may do like a cake pop style with the brownie and add some of that Bailey's to it and use it for garnish, like a truffle garnish for the finish of this cake. So, but I haven't gotten that far in my thought process yet. I have my brownie base baked here in a springform pan, because I do want to use the springform as sort of like a ring mold to unmold this dessert. I do like to use the acetate cake strips whenever I'm making a molded mousse dessert. It's just kind of neater. It's easier to get the whole thing out of the cake pan when you are using the acetate strip, but you don't have to use it here. You could always just kind of loosen the sides with a spatula when it is time to unmold the dessert. So I'm going to set this aside, and now we can go ahead and finish this super easy Irish cream mousse recipe. As I said, I have my chocolate already melted. And to that, we're going to add this warm cashew Bailey's Irish cream base. And then just whisk that together. So now that our beautiful coconut whipped cream is whipped, all we do is fold it in. I'm going to do it in about 3 additions, a little bit at first just to sort of lighten the mixture. So you could just really whisk that in. Now, the one thing I will note about this recipe is that if you did boil up your cashews and let them sit like I did, and then depending on how hot you got your Irish cream and how warm your chocolate was, you do want to pay attention to that, because if your chocolate base mixture is super hot, you don't want to then add in the whipped cream to a super hot mixture. Otherwise, you're just going to have Irish cream soup. So while your mousse cake is setting up in the refrigerator, you could honestly call it a day and just end it right there and have yourself a beautiful Irish cream mousse cake that's just very minimalist. Or you can join in on the chaos that I have going on right here, trying to decide how I'm going to decorate my Irish cream mousse cake. So I didn't film this part because honestly, I didn't really even think it was going to work. But I made these little truffles. I have this silicone mold, and this is the first time that I actually used it, and I have to be honest, I kind of love it. So they're really easy to work with. I just have some tempered chocolate that I poured in as the shell for my little truffle. I had some vegan white chocolate that I added some Bailey's. I keep calling it Bailey's. That's a brand name. It's not Bailey's. I made my own. It's Gretchen's Bakery Irish Cream. So I added some Irish cream to the melted vegan white chocolate with a little bit of coconut oil to kind of keep it all flowing. And I piped it in to this little chocolate mold. And actually, I tasted one already, and they're really good. Check this out. So it's sort of like a Irish cream white chocolate ganache that I have inside of this little truffle. So, I mean, you guys don't have to do this part of it. Again, I was just really playing around while I was waiting for my mousse cake to set, and this was a major score. So we'll see if I even use them, because I often tend to overdo it when I start decorating my cakes and I just want to put everything on it. So in addition to maybe using these Irish cream truffles, we'll see. I also have some of the cake scraps that I was telling you about in the beginning of the video. Now, This is the leftover cake from my recent Snickers cake video, because I'm not sure that I could bring myself to actually mashing up these brownies and turning this into something, because I think I just want to keep these whole and turn these into some really luscious brownie cupcakes. I'm going to make sort of like a rum ball, which is essentially was invented in the bakery to give you a way to use up all of your cake scraps, where they would just take chocolate cake, add some rum to it. Obviously, I'm using whiskey, and you just sort of mash up the cake with that rum soaked in there. And while I was in my freezer digging around, I had, I believe this is fudge icing that I had from another project. Like, seriously, my freezer is absolutely chaos. I told you that. So I'm going to add a little spot of fudge to my whiskey balls, and that's going to sort of bind everything together. And I always just use my hands, with a glove of course, to mash up the cake. And then I'm going to scoop them into balls and freeze them, and then dip them in white chocolate. So as I said, I have a bit of chaos going on this table right now, because I don't really have a focus on how I want this cake to be decorated. I do have a recipe of ganache on the stove that I am going to glaze the top with, and I know I'm going to use that. Whether or not I decide to use all of this decor, I'm not quite sure yet. We'll see. So this is a little bit of ganache that I've replaced some of the plant milk with some Irish cream. And, you know, I do this way more often than not. I go to all the trouble of making all of these elaborate decorations for a cake. And I really just do like to keep it simple. So I don't think I'm going to use any of those truffles for the decoration for this cake. I really do like just the simple look of a finish. So here's the ganache layer. And then I decided to just do a really simple Irish cream buttercream. This is my no shortening buttercream recipe. It's all vegan butter. It's super stable. And at the last stage of mixing, I added in some more of that Irish cream. I figured this is such a low sugar recipe already that it could handle some buttercream topping, and it's really going to balance everything nicely. I'm glad that I kind of decided to go this way. So I'm not real sure what I'm going to do with those truffles and decorations that I made. I guess I'm going to have to just eat them. So comment below and let me know how you would finish a cake like this one. And I really hope that you're going to want to try to make this. So although I didn't use all of the decorations, the whiskey cake balls and the truffles, I will still, of course, link to everything on my website at gretchensveganbakery.com. So be sure to head over there to grab the recipe for everything. And thanks so much for watching. I really love that you guys are here with me each week, checking out my latest creations. Definitely comment below. I really look forward to hearing all of your comments and what you have to say about these recipes, what you would do differently. And just real quick, as always, a great big thank you to my patrons on Patreon and my pals in PayPal for their continued support. They are the reason that this is all still happening, that I am able to share my recipes for free with everyone. So if you think that you could help support the channel for as little as a cup of coffee a month, click the links below to find out how. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy vegan baking. Bye for now.